Last year's Halloween gathering, the unsettling stories we still can't explain. Last Halloween, I was settling into my new apartment above an antique store. I felt a sense of peace after my breakup. I wanted inspiration. I had left the city for this small town, hoping for a quieter life. The decorations around me were faded pumpkins and cobwebs from last year. It felt like a time capsule. One evening, laughter floated up from the street below. Curiosity pulled me away from my laptop. I stepped outside, but the street was empty. I listened for footsteps or voices, but only silence greeted me. I had been watching a documentary about local legends earlier, and the eerie stories lingered in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next day, the lights in my apartment flickered. I ignored it at first. I thought it was just old wiring. But when I showered, the water turned cold. I shivered and got out quickly. I told myself it was just a crazy coincidence. Then I glanced in the mirror and thought I saw a shadow behind me. My heart raced. I turned, but there was nothing. I felt uneasy. As time passed, there were more strange occurrences. I could hear soft whispers late at night, like someone was standing by my door. I looked out, but no one was there. I felt a cold breeze brush against my skin, even when the windows were shut. My stomach twisted in knots. This was different from the stories I read. A couple of days later, I met some locals at a coffee shop. I asked about Halloween traditions. They fell silent, eyes wide. One older man spoke quietly about tragedies from years ago. He said they had an old gathering every Halloween. People would vanish or find themselves lost in the woods. I felt their gaze heavy on me. I was the newcomer. They warned me to leave things alone. I should have listened. But I wanted to know more. Something inside me was drawn to the stories. Late that night, I heard the laughter again, echoing in my apartment. I wanted to believe it was just the wind. I grabbed my camera and headed outside. My heart thumped loudly in my chest. The flickering street lamps lit my path as I walked deeper into the town. Shadows danced around me. As I turned a corner, glimpses of movement caught my eye. I felt eyes on me. I thought I saw a group of figures standing across the street. They wore costumes that looked old and worn. I wanted to run, but I was frozen. They laughed again, a high-pitched sound that sent chills down my spine. I stepped back, and they turned towards me. Their faces were pale and twisted. Then I heard a voice call my name. It was a friend I hadn't seen in years. He stood by the crowd, pale and trembling. Then he turned towards me, eyes wide with fear. I asked what was wrong, but he only whispered, "They're back." I felt a jolt of panic at the sight of my friend. I wanted to call out to him, to bridge the distance between us, but the way he stood, trembling, sent my heart racing. The laughter faded as the figures turned their attention back to him. "Mark!" I shouted, hoping he could hear me over the distance, but my voice wavered. He took a cautious step forward, his eyes locked onto the group. "They can't see you," he muttered, looking utterly lost. His words didn't make sense. "What do you mean? Who are they?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper now. Fear threaded through my gut like a tight knot. "They're the forgotten ones. They come back every Halloween," he said. I wanted to shake him out of whatever daze he was in. I scanned the figures again. Their faces were still twisted, their laughter sharp and unsettling. "Mark, we have to leave." I pulled at his arm, but he barely flinched. Instead, he pointed towards the figures, his expression filled with dread. Just then, one of the figures stepped forward from the group. It wore a costume made from tattered fabric, the edges frayed and dark. I could feel the air grow colder, as if the very essence of life was being sucked away. The figure raised its hand, and I saw a flicker of something in its palm. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice cracking. Mark didn't answer. He kept staring, his mouth moving silently now. I felt a growing sense of urgency. The laughter started to rise again, echoing around us, and I could feel something crawling under my skin. "Mark!" I shook him harder. Snap out of it. Suddenly, the figures surged forward, and Mark gasped like he was pulled into a trance. He stumbled toward them as if an invisible force was urging him to join their ranks. My heart dropped. I lunged for him, grabbing his arm just in time. Stop. Don't go with them. I shouted, and somehow, the grip I had on him broke whatever momentary hold they had. Mark blinked rapidly, like he was waking from a dream. Confusion filled his eyes as he turned to me. They need us, he whispered, his voice trembling. I felt myself shake. What do you mean? Who are they? I don't know, he choked out. But it's worse than any story you've heard. Before I could ask for more, the figures across the street surged forward. In that moment, I understood the danger we were in. I pulled Mark back, adrenaline surging through my veins. Let us just get out of here, I said, shoving him backward, trying to keep my eyes from darting to the grotesque figures now advancing toward us, and then everything went dark. The streetlights flickered and cut off, leaving us engulfed in shadows. I could hear the whispers rising, louder now. Panic swelled in my chest as I fumbled for my phone. Mark! I yelled, and my only answer was the echo of the laughter. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as I felt the darkness press in around us. The shadows swirled, and I could sense the figures moving closer, their laughter grinding against my nerves like nails on a chalkboard. Mark! I called out again, my voice rising in desperation. I could feel the chill in the air wrapping around me like a cold blanket. I shone my phone as flashlight into the blackness, but I could barely see a few feet ahead. Let us go, I urged, pulling Mark in the opposite direction of the advancing figures. This way. But he hesitated, his gaze flickering back toward them. They're calling for us, he insisted, a hint of feverish excitement threading through his tone. I shook my head, frustration mixing with fear. We can't listen. They want to take you. The weight of the moment settled heavy on me, and I felt lost in the midst of it all. The air around us hummed, charged with a strange energy. I caught a glimpse of something shimmering in the darkness, a faint glow that pulsed with every heartbeat. What is that? I whispered, more to myself than to Mark. As I tried to peer closer, a low growl emanated from the eerie crowd of figures. I felt a tremor of warning run through me. We have to move now. Forcing Mark to turn, I pushed him forward. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but the nagging fear was Mark. What if he started to slip away again? My grip on his arm remained tight, a lifeline. Suddenly, the ground underfoot shifted, like I was walking on sand instead of concrete. My feet stumbled, and I looked down. Gnarled roots slowly snaked their way across the street, reaching up like hands pulling from the ground. Panic surged within me. We're going to be trapped. Look! Mark shouted, pointing behind us. One of the figures was breaking away from the group. A shimmer of moonlight caught its tattered edges as it moved, revealing a face, a twisted visage of malice, trapped somewhere between laughter and wailing. I pulled Mark harder, desperate to break free of its gaze, but he didn't budge, eyes wide. They need us. He insisted again, but there was something darker in his voice. Mark, please. I urged. This isn't a game. I took a deep breath, forcing down the panic swirling in my chest. We can't let them have you. In that moment, I noticed something odd above him. A small, battered lantern flickered to life in the shadows. It pulsed with a warm light, illuminating the area around us just enough to push back the darkness. The surrounding murmurs faded slightly, but an eerie tension filled the space. Then I understood. The lantern wasn't just light, it was a signal. The figures recoiled from its glow, like cockroaches skittering from a stray beam. Follow me. I shouted, gripping Mark's arm harder, and I took off toward the faint light, my heart racing faster than my feet. But just as we reached the lantern, a piercing scream echoed through the air. Mark jerked from my grasp, captivated by the chaos creeping back in. The figures surged forward, merging back into the dark. My heart dropped. I turned to find him staring into the void, lost once more. Mark! I cried, but the lantern flickered and began to fade. Adrenaline shot through me. I stepped forward, determined to pull him back into the light. But then I heard the unmistakable sound of laughter, chilling and echoing, reverberating through the night. I rushed to him, but the shadows thickened around us, and the figures began to press in again. The lantern's light dimmed further, and I felt time slipping away, then everything went dark again. The darkness wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud, a heavy silence replacing the chaos. I blinked rapidly, waiting for my eyes to adjust, but all I saw was black. The growling laughter echoed around us, each disembodied sound drawing closer. "Mark!" I shouted, my voice cracking with urgency. Panic clawed at my throat. I felt the familiar breeze brushing past, almost like fingers grazing my skin. I hated how I was forced to rely on my voice alone, but I had to reach him. "We have to get out of here." Feeling along the ground, I stumbled forward in what I hoped was the right direction. My heart raced, each beat desperate and frantic. Just as I took a step, I collided with something solid, an object lying on the ground. I crouched down and grabbed it, feeling the cool metal surface. An old lantern, its glass cracked and grime-covered. I turned it over, desperate for it to be similar to the one we'd seen before. Suddenly, a flicker light. The lantern sputtered to life, casting long shadows around me. Relief washed over me for a split second, but then dread clawed its way back as I realized I was still alone. "Mark!" I yelled again, but the darkness swallowed my hope. The shadows twisted, sharpening as I flicked the lantern's switch once more. I knew I had to find Mark, but every second felt like an eternity. Just as I took a shaky breath, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate. My blood ran cold. "Mark?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. I felt a presence nearby, but the light from the lantern only revealed the contours of the dark, shifting like smoke. I hesitated, debating whether to press forward or retreat. "Please, if you can hear me, say something." Nothing. The footsteps quickened, and I felt a shiver creep down my spine. I shuffled backward, holding the lantern like a shield, its feeble glow wavering against the encroaching shadows. The laughter faded into sinister whispers, wrapping tight around me. And then I saw it. A flicker of movement beyond the light, a figure materializing under the faint glow. I squinted, desperate to make out its features. It wasn't Mark. It was another one of those twisted beings, its face like a grotesque painting. Its smile stretched unnaturally, and its hollow eyes locked onto mine with a terrifying intensity. I gasped, stumbling back. The lantern flickered again, a sign of fading hope. "Stay away!" I shouted, the weight of fear pressing down hard. I turned to run, hoping to find a way back to where we had come from. But then, through the thinning shadows, I spotted Mark at the edge of the flickering light, staring in disbelief. "Mark!" Before I could finish, the shadows pulled him back in, the laughter rising once more. It was a collective sound, rising and falling like the tide. I choked on my fear, feeling the distance between us expand like an endless chasm. Then, my grip on the lantern slipped. It fell, its light scattering across the ground. I scrambled to catch it, heart racing as I turned back to him. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of Mark's expression: confusion, fear, then something else: acceptance. "Mark, no! Fight it!" I cried, but all I heard was laughter echoing through the darkness, a sound that morphed into a single chilling phrase. "You'll join us soon." The last glimmer of light faded, leaving me alone once more, consumed by the void. What had I stumbled into? And how would I ever get him back? The silence was deafening. I was alone in the consuming darkness, the wind fading into whispers that clawed at my sanity. My heart pounded as I fumbled for the lantern, praying it would still function. I found it, my fingers trembling around the cool metal. With a deep breath, I flicked the switch again. This time, the light burst forth, illuminating a circle around me. I scanned the area, desperately searching for any sign of Mark or a way out. The shadows danced, teasing me, bringing forth images of twisted faces and contorted shapes. I could feel their eyes on me, watching, waiting. "Mark!" I called out again, trying to keep my voice steady. I took a few hesitant steps forward, the beams of light from the lantern cutting through the veil of darkness. "Please, answer me." Nothing but silence wrapped around me. Just as I considered turning back, my foot struck something, a soft thud against the ground. I dropped to my knees, desperately searching for what lay before me. My hands grazed over something warm and wet. I recoiled, heart racing, then I remembered. There had been blood, the unmistakable metallic scent that hung in the air. I quickly felt around, adrenaline coursing through me. My fingers finally brushed against something familiar, a scrap of Mark's shirt, torn and stained. Mark! I gasped, fear flooding my senses. I gripped the lantern tighter, the metal digging into my palm. Where are you? A rustle came from behind me, sharp and sudden. I spun around, lantern raised like a weapon. My pulse quickened as I stuttered forward, scanning the darkness. The shapes seemed to shift and morph into threatening figures, and I felt the edges of fear consuming me. Then, a voice, his voice, weak and strained. Help me! Mark! I bolted toward the sound, relief giving me strength. I'm coming, just hold on. I stumbled forward, heart racing harder than before. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of sinister laughter filling the air. I couldn't focus, couldn't think, just run toward the faint echo of his voice. But each word pulled me deeper into a nightmare I didn't understand. Finally, I emerged into a small clearing, and there he was, Mark, hunched against a wall, looking pale and broken. Relief rushed through me, but before I could reach him, a figure emerged from the shadows beside him. It was one of them, grinning with that horrid smile I had seen before. Leave him be! I shouted, desperation fueling my voice as I stepped forward. The creature turned, its hollow eyes glistening with amusement. You shouldn't have come here. But I'm here for him. I cried, half hoping my words would have power over it. Only one can escape. The creature's voice slithered through the air, chilling me to my core. It lifted its hand, revealing long, bony fingers pointing toward Mark. I turned back to him, panic gripping my throat. Mark! We can find a way out together. Mark looked up, the light catching the shadows on his face. It's too late for me, just go. No! I shouted, but every instinct screamed that this wasn't over. That the danger was far from done, and the darkness still had a grip on Mark and on me. Then everything went dark again. The lantern flickered and died in my hand, leaving me with nothing but dread. My breath caught in my throat. Something was lurking in the darkness, waiting for my next move. The darkness felt alive, closing in around me like a suffocating shroud. I fumbled for the switch of the lantern, heart hammering in my chest. When I managed to bring the light back, a dim glow emerged, barely illuminating the dread that filled the air. It was like stepping back into a nightmare where I had lost control. Mark! I called, but the sound felt swallowed. The shadows quivered, the dirt beneath my fingers felt sticky and cold. I didn't want to think about what it was. I needed to focus on Mark, but uncertainty gnawed at me. Then, an echo came, not the soothing sound of Mark's voice, but a low growl, reverberating through the trees. I turned, gripping the lantern as if it could shield me from the horrors lurking outside its fragile circle of light. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted movement. There was something, or someone, shifting between the trees just beyond my reach. Who's there? I called, my voice stronger than I felt. Silence swept over the clearing again, thick and heavy. I took a tentative step forward. That's when I saw it. A shadow detached itself from the trees, creeping toward me with an unnatural grace. Panic surged as I realized it wasn't human. The creature melded with the shadows, its form undulating and changing. I could feel it watching me, assessing my fear. I stumbled back, instinct taking over. Get away from me! I screamed. The creature halted abruptly but didn't retreat. I clung to the lantern, desperate for some semblance of safety. I just want Mark. I cried out, my heart racing as I twisted around, looking for a way out. Then there was a faint groan behind me. I spun back to see Mark struggling to sit up, his breaths shallow and labored. The creature flicked its gaze toward him and grinned, revealing jagged teeth. Only one can escape, it repeated softly, almost mocking. It took a step closer to Mark, who was still weak and disoriented. No! I yelled, lunging forward. But before I could reach him, the creature raised its hand, and suddenly the ground beneath us trembled. The very earth felt alive, shifting and groaning. "Stay back!" I shouted, but chaos erupted. The shadows compressed, swirling like a dark storm around us. It was as if the night itself were trying to breathe us in. I could feel the pull of the darkness, like a cold wind drawing me down. "Mark! We can fight this!" My voice trembled, but I had to believe we could find a way out. I turned, searching for any sign of hope, any way to combat this nightmare consuming us. Light burst through the trees, as if in answer to my plea. But it wasn't from my lantern. It was blinding, a sharp contrast to the surrounding darkness. I squinted, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Then everything stopped. The creature froze, its smile falling as it turned to the oncoming light. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Mark's arm. "We have to go." But as we stumbled toward the light, I felt an icy grip around my ankle. I looked back, horrified to see another shadow emerging, this one more solid, more menacing. The darkness was coming for us. Would it ever let us go? The moment the icy grip wrapped around my ankle, every nerve in my body screamed to flee. I yanked my leg, but the darkness held tight. I felt like I was being pulled into a pit of despair, the cold seeping into my bones. My blood raced as I kicked violently, desperate to break free. "Mark, help me!" I gasped, darting my eyes back to him. He was still struggling to rise, confusion painted on his face. The light from the trees flickered, illuminating his features for just a moment. The creature's twisted grin returned, more sinister now. It gazed at me with gleaming eyes, as if it thrived on my fear. "Only one can escape," it repeated, a taunt echoing deep in my skull. "No! We'll both get out of here!" I shouted, lunging forward again. I could feel the shadows clawing at my leg, pulling me deeper into their grasp. Each second felt like an eternity, as panic tightened my chest. With a surge of adrenaline, I channeled every ounce of willpower to focus on the light shimmering before us. It seemed to pulsate, vibrating with energy. I envisioned it pushing the darkness away, a cleansing fire against the night. "Mark, focus on the light. It's our way out!" I yelled, forcing my voice to break through the chaos. Finally, he looked up, determination glimmering in his eyes. "I see it!" he shouted back. In that moment, everything shifted. The creature hissed, recoiling as if the light burned it. I felt the shadows waver, loosening just enough for me to break free. Ignoring the ache in my leg, I lunged forward, grabbing Mark's arm with fierce urgency. "Go, now!" I urged, pushing him ahead towards the light. We stumbled together, blind to what lay between us and safety. The growl from behind us intensified, a warning that ignited my fear anew. I didn't dare look back, not even for a second. The darkness should have been swallowing us, but somehow the light seemed to push it away, parting the shadows, allowing a path to form. As we sprinted forward, a sharp crack echoed in the night, like a whip snapping. The ground trembled beneath us, and I felt the dark pulse, almost as if it were alive, angry at our escape. Then, without warning, a terrible force shoved me off my feet. I tumbled forward, rolling in a tangle of limbs, and landed hard against the ground. The lantern slipped from my grasp, extinguishing the precious light. Panic surged as I lay in the dark, breathing heavily, my heart thumping wildly. "Mark!" I called, my voice shaky. I struggled to sit up, dread crawling back into my chest. Everything was pitch black. "I'm here," he replied. Relief washed over me, but it faded quickly as I slowly stood, scanning the darkness, searching. "Stay close, please." Then I heard it again, the sound of the creature, its growl low and menacing, echoing in the void. My pulse quickened, a deep instinct urging me to find shelter, anything that could shield us. But before I could act, a new sound shattered the night, the cracking of branches, the rush of footsteps approaching from the other side. My heart pounded. This time, it wasn't the creature. Something else was coming, and it was close. "What now?" I whispered, my throat dry. I stood frozen, waiting for whatever emerged from the shadows. The dread clawed at me, knowing we were far from safe. What else had this darkness unleashed? I held my breath, the darkness pressing in around us like a shroud. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, more deliberate. My mind raced. Was it another creature, or something even worse? I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was out there would be drawn to the chaos we had created. "Mark, we need to move," I whispered urgently, my eyes darting to the dense thicket nearby. It seemed like our only option. Behind us, the growl of the creature twisted in my gut, a reminder of how close danger was. As we slipped into the safety of the underbrush, the shadows felt almost alive, writhing around us. I pressed my back against a large tree, trying to steady my breath and listen. Mark crouched beside me, his face pale. "What's out there?" he asked, voice trembling. "I don't know, but we can't stay here." The footsteps continued, uncomfortably close now. I thought I could make out a figure moving in the distance, its form shifting and swaying unnaturally. I fought the urge to scream. "Can you see it?" Mark asked, squinting. "No. But it's not the creature. It's different." I suddenly noticed there was a faint glow ahead of us, almost like a firefly flickering between the trees. It danced in the darkness, beckoning, but there was something off about it. "Oh no," I breathed. "What if that's another trap?" Mark's face mirrored my fear. It could be a way out, but could it? I hesitated, an instinct deep in my gut cautioning me against moving forward. The creature's growl rumbled once more, cutting through the tension, reminding us of the danger lurking just out of sight. Then, right behind us, branches snapped sharply. My heart leaped into my throat. "Mark!" I gasped as I turned around. We were not alone. Emerging from the underbrush was a shadowy figure, its features obscured, but for the first time in this nightmare, it didn't feel threatening. It stopped in front of us and raised its hands, revealing a small lantern flickering with a warm, inviting light. "Follow me," it urged in a low voice. "This way." I exchanged a look with Mark. The glow from the lantern seemed to push back the shadows, offering a sliver of hope. But unease tinged every breath I took. "Who are you?" I questioned, my voice barely a whisper. "Someone who knows how to get out of here." "Trust me, there isn't much time," the figure said, glancing back toward the looming darkness. My gut told me to run, but the desperation for escape pushed that aside. I squeezed Mark's arm tightly. "We can't stay here." With that, I started moving toward the figure, adrenaline fueling my steps. As we approached, the figure stepped back, engulfed in shadows again. A chill ran down my spine, and I hesitated, glancing back toward the creature's growls. It was dangerously close, then everything went dark again. The lantern flickered, and in that instant, I lost sight of Mark. "Mark!" I yelled, panic exploding in my chest. I felt a hand grasp my arm, but I couldn't tell if it was his. "Come on." The voice was urgent, pulling me into the dark. "We have to move." All I could think was whether this was a new trap or an escape route. I had to choose quickly, and as the growl echoed again behind me, I had no choice but to follow. But as I stumbled forward, the hand gripping my arm tightened. That was when I felt it, a different kind of cold, wrapping around me, deeper and darker than anything I'd faced yet. "Let go!" I shouted, but it wouldn't release me. And that's when I understood. Whatever this was had no intention of letting me escape. The grip on my arm tightened, and a sense of despair washed over me. "Let go!" I shouted again, but it felt like yelling into a void. The shadows pressed in closer, curling around us as I struggled against the hold. It felt like sinking deeper into quicksand. "Don't fight it," the figure urged, its voice now sharp and direct. "You need to trust me." Trust? After everything? My heart raced as I weighed my options. I felt so alone, lost in this suffocating darkness. Then I remembered Mark. "Where's Mark?" I managed to choke out through my fear. "He's safe," the figure insisted. Right now, the only danger is behind us. Move. I hesitated, scanning the shadows that loomed around us, but the growls were unmistakable. I had to make a choice: stay here and risk our lives or take a leap of faith. Okay, fine. I gasped, and the figure pulled me effortlessly through the thicket, the branches scratching my arms. Every instinct screamed to run back. But when the growl erupted behind us, raw and hungry, I knew I had no choice but to trust this stranger. Just as we broke through the thick brush, I stumbled into a clearing bathed in the same strange light that had drawn me here. The figure stopped and turned, revealing a face partially illuminated by the lantern's glow. It was a woman with sharp features and an intense gaze. "Listen closely," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "They're not merely creatures, they're shadows of fear, born from deep truths. They'll devour you if you let them." "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to absorb her words through my rising panic. "They feed on uncertainty. You feel it, don't you? The doubt, the fear. That's what calls them." Her eyes bore into mine, intense and searching. "You must anchor yourself to what you know. Hold on to the light inside you." I opened my mouth to respond, but then I heard a feral hiss, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps closing in. My blood ran cold again. "Now!" she shouted, lifting the lantern higher. "Run to the edge of the light." I took off toward the far side of the clearing, adrenaline pounding in my veins as I sprinted. I could sense the shadows crawling behind me, hungry and relentless. The darkness felt alive, reaching for me with cold, grasping fingers. Then I heard another loud thud, followed by a growl that reverberated in my bones. My heart raced as I glanced back over my shoulder. The shadows were morphing, shifting into something more defined, more threatening. It wasn't just a creature anymore, it was an entire swarm of them. That's when I saw it, a glimmering soft light, like the dawn breaking through the night, just beyond the clearing. I ran faster, fueled by hope. But would I reach that light before they caught me? "Almost there." The woman called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Believe. It's the only way out." With every ounce of strength left in me, I pushed toward the light. But something hollow in my gut warned me that the threat wasn't just behind me, it was also in front of me. Would that glow be salvation or yet another trap? The shimmers of light intensified as I dashed forward, the world around me fading into a blur. My heart thudded against my chest, a primal rhythm urging me onward. I could feel the presence of the shadow creatures hot on my heels, their chilling whispers clawing at my mind. "Only one can escape," echoed in my thoughts, an ugly truth trying to tether me to the darkness. "Believe." The woman's voice carried through the chaos, like a beacon reassuring me to let go of despair. I kept my gaze fixed on the luminous glow ahead. It felt like a promise. The shadows, swirling and relentless, began to surge forward in a chaotic wave. I could feel their icy tendrils licking at my heels, begging me to falter, to look back. Then I broke free from the dense brush, tumbling into the clearing filled with warmth and light. I stumbled onto the grass, my heart hammering in my throat. But before I could catch my breath, I turned back, finding the figure of the woman still standing at the edge, raising the lantern as the shadows writhed and protested against its brilliance. "Go!" she shouted, "get to the light." As I ran toward the bright spot, I felt a sudden sharp pull at my consciousness, an instinct encouraging me to look back just one last time. Mark's face flashed before me and my breath caught in my throat. Where was he? The chaotic cacophony of laughter and darkness roared behind me, momentarily drowning my thoughts. I sprinted farther into the glow, shaking the growing shadows from my mind. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me seemed to shift again, as if the light was withdrawing, pulling further back, leaving me teetering on the edge of uncertainty. I pressed on, fear mingling with determination. "I won't leave you," I shouted, desperate for Mark's presence. "We'll both escape." But the more I focused on the direction of the light, the more I felt the darkness infiltrating my mind, tempting me to stop, to surrender. Suddenly, the woman's voice shattered through, echoing against the walls of panic constricting my chest. "Focus on him. Anchor yourself with what you love." The image of Mark surrounded by those cruel figures arrived like an unwelcome shudder, refusing to leave my thoughts. Hold on, Mark. I'm coming. I shouted again, the words spilling from my lips with newfound urgency. I grasped at the warm light before me, feeling its influence wrap around my heart like chains dissolving in flame, and just like that, the shadows began to recede. Their growls faded into a sickening silence, filled instead with occasional whispers that seemed to drift further into the background. I turned, and the figures managing to stay close were receding slowly, color bleeding from their grotesque forms. I heard a sound of familiar voice in the chaos. "Don't leave me." It was Mark, his voice raw and terrified. It sliced through the veil of fear around me. "Help!" I spun on my heels, propelled by the urgency of his plea. "I'm right here," I screamed, forcing my trembling legs to carry me back. The light of the lantern behind me steadied, and the air buzzed with hope. I would find him. The shadows writhed in veins of darkness around Mark, who clutched at the ground as if he were being pulled into its depths. I felt the darkness claw at me as I returned, the laughter building once more. "No!" I shouted into the suffocating void, a fierce guardian determined to reclaim him. "Reach for me!" I yelled, stretching out my hand. He caught my gaze, fear and resolve mixing in equal measure. "Please." The moment his fingers brushed against mine, a surge of warmth enveloped us both, and a brilliant light erupted, engulfing the darkness in waves. Mark's hand squeezed mine tightly, pulling me closer despite the chaos that threatened to pull him away again. The world around us brightened as the shadows pushed back with a roar of anger, and for one brief moment, I felt weightless, a crystalline clarity of everything that mattered coalescing around my heart. "Keep holding on," I shouted, my muscles straining against the darkness grip, illuminating the air between us. The shadows roared in protest as we ran forward into the white-lit embrace, the laughter fading into forlorn cries. We burst through the shimmering light, tumbling out of the darkness that had threatened to consume us both. I landed on the other side, gasping, still clutching Mark's hand. The shadows were nowhere to be seen, swallowed into nothingness. For a brief moment, bliss wrapped around us, a dizzying sense of relief, of safety. But as I looked around, confusion replaced my calm. We stood in an empty street, a few flickering lights casting long shadows against the cobblestones. "What just happened?" Mark muttered, looking dazed. "I don't know," I whispered back, trying to make sense of our surroundings. I started to breathe normally again, but there was still unease lingering in the pit of my stomach. "But I think we're okay. We made it." But even as the words left my mouth, a chill danced down my spine. Was it truly over, or had we merely stepped out of one darkness only to peer into another? I glanced over my shoulder one last time, half expecting to see the shadow figures lurking, waiting. But there was nothing. The air was still. Though the immediate threat was gone for now, I couldn't shake a lingering unease. Behind every echo of laughter, every shiver of wind, I sensed the shadows still held sway over somewhere deep, a reminder we might not be alone. "Come on," I said to Mark, feeling a hint of dread coiling back around my heart. "Let us get out of this town." The night stretched before us, enigmatic and dark, the flickers of light around us offering little comfort. As we walked, I still thought of the figures, the laughter that once echoed through our ears, and I wondered, how many more could be lost to the night? In what other shadows did they linger? I moved forward, anxiously shielding my heart from memories of what had almost consumed us, but deep down, I knew some questions may never have answers. Some threads run so deep you can never truly escape their reach.